All right. So welcome to Digital Lunch. And I am really, really excited to invite or to have Loes here. Loes Opgenhaffen? Hoffen?
Opgenhaffen.
Yes, exactly. As she is joining us as the very prestigious Rubicon Postdoctoral Award receiver. And so we have her for quite a long time, and it's been a real joy to have her in the department. She has been an archaeological illustrator since, 2006? Is what it said? Yeah, that's a long, long time. I didn't realize actually, and received her PhD at the University of Amsterdam in 2022. And I became aware of her work in 2021 when she published a really fantastic open archaeology article, Visualizing Archaeologists, a reflexive history of visualization practice in archaeology. And it was really one of those really great articles that not only gave a lot of really unique and interesting insights into visualization and archaeology, but also did like a lot of heavy lifting that I don't have to do anymore. I just like, oh, and for more, see this amazing article. So it was a real landmark in our field. And so I'm going to go ahead and give it over to Loes now. And so we'll be spending about 35, 40 minutes, and then we'll have time for questions later. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Colleen.
Yeah.
Yes, Colleen just said I'm a postdoc. My project started a half a year ago. It's a 2-year project. So I will present mainly preliminary results. And present what I'm doing and what I want to do in the end and how I want to publish. Okay. I'm really interested in transformations, how things change and why that is. Me, myself, on a personal level, I changed from an artist to an archaeologist and then archaeological illustrating mostly. I made a change, well, I went through a transitional period from analog to digital visualization practice. And also physically from some disabilities in my joints, but these led to actually new abilities, digital abilities to do. And what I'm really interested in is how new technology is affecting these changes and how this if you adopt something new, what is exactly the impact on your existing practice? Is it really changing, or are we doing the same things but then digitally? So here you see me drawing almost 20 years ago. Then new technology entered my practice. And now we're all looking to screens or via screens to our material. And the same, actually, same processes. These are not new. This not only counts for the digital. This is also the same mechanisms are behind adoption of new technology in ancient practices. So I'm really interesting how, people started from really small scale building, suddenly had some new technology, and then could build way more in more monumental style. What was behind that? I'm really interested in that. So I'm interested in changes in the past and the present. And this is not only data. I'm here presenting nice reconstructions, but no people at all. And I'm really interested in the people who built these things and also the people who made the digital visualizations. This is just a mental map. Actually, just I put everything together, what you can expect on the building sites, based also on the material that they had available and what we find. So like clay and wood and plaster material. And then, of course, you should have had carpenters and people in the quarry, the mud brick producers, masons, the artists that made all the terracotta decoration. It was super busy on a building site. They all came together there. And it must have intense communication to together build such a monumental temple. So it was super busy there. In this talk, I do have some structure. It may not seem like it, but I will first present the context of these temples and the project, the digital methods I use, and the first results that come out of this. I do not have real interpretations yet, but I do have some new insights. I will present my methodology that I've developed in previous research and I'm now expanding, and all the new experiences also led me to some changes in this methodology, which I will present. And I will present how this works, this how you can apply this methodology with my own autoethnographic recording of the practice. And then assess it a little bit. Has it really changed, or are we doing the same but done differently? As Colleen already mentioned, I won a Rubicon grant, which is really nice that I now can do a project and a theme and a subject that I really like, I really enjoy, that I always was doing next to my other work, and now I can fully focus on that. The subject is really what I already presented. How do we deal with new technology? If there's new technology, is it adopted or is it rejected? That also happens. So that's my main interest. And then my goal is to reconstruct these interactions between all these different craftspeople in the past on the building site and how they responded to new techniques. And I also want to assess the extent to which our own practices have changed due to digital innovations. And I do that with a new methodology that integrates digital 3D visualization and computational techniques to do the analysis, and micromorphological analysis, and some theory also to explain all these things. And then I use a technological lens. So if we have material, I want to know how the traces in the technical traces in that material that were left by people, how it was made, and that can reconstruct their interactions. So I have traces of mud, dowel fragments of building, but they're built in different ways, even in the same time. There are coexisting practices, but they're doing it differently. These people wanted to say something with it, demonstrate something, like technical identity. We do it like this, and they are doing it like that. And that's how I can reach these people. And why I do that, I will explain shortly, why I'm so interested in that. In this project, I have 2 case studies. This is already quite clear, I think. The temples of Mater Matuta and ancient Satricum, and my own practice and the wider practice of archaeological visualization. And I focused in the first case study on the traces left in stone and earthwork, just to minimize a bit all the material that is available, and 3D registration and the reconstructions that I can make out of this. And for the second case study, I focus on the creative and the decision-making processes to reconstruct this architecture in 3D, and to do that by reflexively recording this. Where is Satricum? I'm talking about these temples, and where are these? Well, they're really in the middle of central Italy, in Italy. Really near to Rome, 60 kilometers south of Rome. And it is a unique site because it's really in between the Greeks in the south and the Etruscans in the north, and then near Rome also. There's all these different cultures. And then there was Satricum and a couple of other sites in the vicinity, in the region, that were all influenced by that, but had really their own way of doing things and building temples specifically. And today, this really tiny place is called Le Ferrière, and which has something to do with iron. The site, a really brief historical overview. The site was discovered in the late 19th century. And what they first discovered were the remains of these temples of Mater Matuta, a local deity. And then soon excavations began, but they only lasted for 2 years. And then this Mangarelli came back in 1910 to do a really extensive survey, really precise survey if you place all these old maps over the modern maps. And then a long time nothing, with an interruption in the 1950s. And then because local landowners started to destroy the landscapes, they asked the help of the Dutch Royal Institute to perform rescue excavations, but they never left the Dutch state. And since 30 years, it's under the direction of Professor Marijke Genade. It still is. This is a projection of the old map over the Google Maps. We did it already 15 years ago, but it's really, really precise. Satricum was a very wealthy city between the 9th and the 5th century BC. Especially in the Archaic period, well, already before, but in the Archaic period, which is of course the most interesting period because I want to study it. It's really interesting that then they started to monumentalize the temples. There was first the temple hut in Iron Age, and then suddenly they started to build their first building with stone foundations and roof tiles and perishable superstructure material like earth, like wattle and dow. And within like 120 years, they built successive temples, each time a bit bigger. So for some reason, they got some new technologies, some new techniques and materials to build their religious temples in a different way. Which makes it really interesting for me to follow the practices through time. That's why this site makes it an ideal case to study these changes. And then early 5th centuries, new people came from the Volscians came from the mountains. There were subsequent wars, and this was basically the end of the city. And then a huge Roman villa was built with this. In the recent years, our research focus and excavations are carried out there, but that's not what I'm dealing with. And then the place is called Le Ferrière because in the 16th century, an iron factory was built in the town. The research on temple, I'm not doing anything new. I'm standing in a long tradition of research into temples, especially of Satricum. And in the 70s, when the Dutch started excavating, Barbara Heldering identify a leveling layer, which is super interesting. This is my baseline, because this is the leveling layer, this first monumental temple building, the small oikos of 8 by 6 by 10 meters, was built, then destroyed, then the whole bunch was leveled, and for the building of the temple 1, the next temple. So there I have datable material that is really from before. So there I can start. In the 80s, early 80s, Jos de Wale, a surveyor, he reconstructed, he measured everything really precise again, and made plans, and made the first reconstructions on paper of the building. He was an architect also. And later, all the terracotta decorations decorated the temple. Were thoroughly studied by Riemer Knoop and Patricia Lulloff, and their work is really important for me also. Especially the work of Patricia Lulloff. She was one of the first, together with Riemer, but mainly of these huge terracottas. She pieced all the pieces together and reconstructed all the things, and I could use her drawings to reconstruct a decorative scheme in 3D on the temples. We worked closely together since 2008, so she trained me in all this. These decorations, I'm not using them for my new reconstruction, but they're interesting because they give the sizes. They're not just decorations. The terracottas prevented, it was against the elements of the weather, because the building was of wood and of earth, so they protected that. So all the revetment clocks, their sizes, they correspond to wooden beams, for example, and the antefixes that at the end, at the sides of the building, these are the cover tiles. So I have all these measures. So this is really nice. And it's also already a long tradition of 3D reconstructions also. Lulov already reconstructed the first temples, as you see here, in 2005, I believe, 20 years ago. Other people also, I found these on this reconstruction on 15 years old already on YouTube. But the sizes are not entirely correct. And this is one of my first reconstructions, the one up, not the model, over 10 years ago. But I need to revise that a lot, because since after that first reconstruction, I started more professionally approached temples and how they were exactly built, not just put beams on top of each other and then some roof tiles on it. No, I wanted to have really detailed reconstruction. With scanning already, with the good old Next Engine shoebox, the laser machine, I scanned stuff and then reconstructed everything virtually, also with colors. The colors are really nicely preserved in the material. And included also everything together, all the detailed 2D drawings, landscape drawings, so that they have an idea about how it was positioned in the landscape. But usually you just see things floating, and then what's the use of that? These are all the reconstructions already. Well, the terracottas are already designed. I don't need to redo this again, but the construction itself, that needs revision, and that's why this whole project is. And I based on all these kinds of different, where I can find information on how the people in the 6th century BC made their buildings, how they constructed, and pieced it all together in even pollen analysis to find out what materials were locally available and kinds of stuff like that. But where are the people, as you see here? Yeah, that's nice, all this, but where are the people that actually built it? And all the long research tradition there is on the temples, where are they're focused on Greek architects and the artists that made all the terracottas, but where are the people that actually built all the temple? Well, and this is basically the material I use to reconstruct all this. And I think from these really tiny fragments, you can actually have really a lot of information on how people, which choices they made, how they made, well, what material they used to stabilize the earth, for example, the loam, to make it a good building material. So how do I do that? I do that with this new methodology, integrating 3D and computational techniques and micromorphological analysis. I cannot tell much yet about the micromorphological analysis. I had a great student with me in January in Italy, and she is studying the fabrics of the mud remains. Still waiting for the chapter. But I was scanning with the machine at the same time and on a really high resolution to also have the 3D data of the fabric itself. Usually you have thin sections or flat, but you also need the 3D information. But I will present that shortly. I do that with an SLS scanner and with photogrammetry also, which you have to be really aware of the choices you make. Why do you use it? I do not use a 3D scanner because I can. That is an informed choice. Although you never see it back in literature, why people use it actually, these technologies. Is it really necessary? Why do you use it? What resolution do you use? Do you need all that resolution? So this is not a flow chart that works. It's just to give an impression what you have to think about. And then it's not just a push on a button. I use structured light scanning. I also chose for this way of scanning this technology because it's affordable. Although, of course, you have also 50,000 pound scanners, but this is one of 3,000 that I built myself. And it basically projects light patterns on the object, and where it distorts on the surface, the sensors record that, and then it is translated into a point cloud. Really basic explanation there. And then it projects some the RGB colors on it for the color information. It's an interpretation of the color, so that's interesting. Similar algorithms that they use now to color all the black and white pictures of the past, for example. Looks like this: 2 machine vision cameras, a projector, a short throw, and then you can mount a DSLR camera on it, but only really old ones, because I use it is not open source, but they release now the software for free because it's discontinued. So she can only work with legacy models. These are the softwares I work with. With HP 3D Scan Pro, I work since ages now. It was formerly known as David. Then HP took over, and then they discontinued all things. So there are no affordable SLS scanners on the market anymore, but you can build it yourself and use this kind of software for free now. I also started using image-based modeling software like Pix4D Mapper and Reality Capture to also see which software works best and fastest. I DIY a lot, also my photo booths, and used really cheap LED lights from the pound store, or how do you call it here? But they're really useful in the field. I have some scale bars from Paleo 3D, which is really useful because Reality Capture and Metashape recognize these scales. I believe here the one of CHI is used. Yeah, similar. This is German. And I have been experimenting, or I asked this lovely colleague to experiment for me with Scaniverse and compare the results with that, which uses a different, you can just use your smartphone. It uses a different kind of recording, like Gaussian splatting, and you can export that all to meshes, to export and import it in MeshLab, for example, in your computer. First results are a bit disappointing. Amazing textures, but maybe it's me. I need to experiment more with this. And to process it all and then analyze all the data I obtained, I use MeshLab, but in a lesser way also Cloud Compare to compare the different outputs of different recording techniques, and GigaMesh, which is a super nice German program. Do you know it? It's really nice. What did I discover from the 3D scanning? Well, I did it myself, actually. It was not a machine that identified the new traces. It was because I was studying also the material myself, and by taking time, because the scanning is not going fast. I did the discovery myself, and it was confirmed with the 3D models. And it's useful as a communication method and to, of course, analyze them and compare things. I found some plaster coatings, and I was really interested to see what the detail was of my scanner, if I can actually see the layers also in the 3D model. So for that, you need to really take your time to make scans on a really high resolution. But it was not the scan that I identified the picture to the right, the white one, that it was probably kind of plaster or coating layer. We didn't find so far. I didn't find in the notebooks of all the excavations in the past of the fine processing lab any clue for plaster layers. They're just not found in Satricum. Maybe because they were identified as roof tiles, but they were probably. But this is not. This is not terracotta. This is not pottery. This fragment. It's something else. So maybe this is a plaster layer, for example. Probably someone here online will disagree, but I really hope if people have other ideas, then like to hear it. Oh, see, it moves also. I also see it's really this I actually saw on the when I was scanning a little tiny surface on that a wattle and daub fragment. What does it mean? Maybe it's just a trowel mark. Need to figure it out. I asked Ashley here, the mud specialist here, and she said, yeah, it could be anything. Well, indeed, a trowel mark. We find it all the time, these tiny things. But I'm new in this business, so in the mud business, so I'm already happy that it actually it records it. The resolution is high enough to single these things out. Finishing traces. I want to see. It's not finishing traces, but maintenance, really. You see here different layers on top of each other. Not really clear on with the texture layer on, but if you turn it off, I really like to remove all the photographic data, and then you see actually more. You see some layers of additional, maybe maintenance layers, because these buildings, they stood for a while, but it's of earth, so it needs additional, well, some repairs in later stages, which is quite visible here. Can you see that? Yeah, it's here a layer and here a layer, and we're on top of it, 2 or 3 layers. And also on the back, it's quite flat, but it doesn't need to. I learned that here, which is really nice. Just showing the models to Ashley here, and then what is this? Is this the outside, the exterior of the building? She said, yeah, there are different layers of building. First, you have the wattle and the daub. You smear loam on top of it, and then you have the finishing layers on top of that, and then you have a flat backside, but it's not because it's the wall. It was pushed against another layer of loam. Yeah. Tiny imprints. I find these really interesting because this is used left by pressing the cups against each other, and then you get these fissures. Tiny seed imprints, which will say something. I'm not sure if it's incidental or that they stabilized it with other plant material, organic material. But it would be nice to identify these seeds with the diet, for example, that locally, or maybe it's just wheat or something. It could also be the case. So I have to should have a look with yeah, some specialist to this. But these are interesting details, I think, that can tell me something about why they chose to stabilize, to use stabilizers are like the temper for mud building, to use this plant material. There are also, so these were the wattle and daub fragments, but there are also mud bricks, found mud bricks, but that I don't have these from the temple itself. Little is preserved from the temple building, I must say. So I have to do it with material around the temple from the houses surrounding the temple. from the same time. Yeah, because these temples were already dug up in the late 19th century and they weren't really looking for earth material remains. And also not that much is preserved from the early Dutch excavations. A lot was deselected, for example. So I see them in the notebooks, but not back in the finds. That has changed a lot since the 90s, actually. So it's also interesting to see the development of, excavation practice. Construction traces. This is a piece not from. This is from the lower city area, from elsewhere. I should not look into this. This is too much. Probably I should focus on the Acropolis, on the temple, and the buildings surrounding the temples. But there's a nice pole, like the beam imprint in here. Was it a piece of kiln because of the rough surface on top of it? Or is it the where the beams of the roof ended? Because it seems a little oblique. That needs further, but this is the next project to look into the material of that I learned this the past 3 months. I was in Italy studying the material. That I figured this is a preparation for a new project after this one. But for me, it was also interesting technically because this scan I made with FlexScan 3D and my 3D scanner. So I processed it with other software. And I found out I'm not going to use this software anymore, and I will write it down somewhere. Tarculus, it takes so much time to calibrate the thing, and then it's not that detailed. It's a bit fuzzy, as you can see. I don't like it. Anyways, so that is the result. Don't try this at home. FlexScan. We had a field work for a week of recording the entire temple precinct in 3D with a drone and handheld with a camera that I borrowed from here. Really nice Nikon D750. So we have nice overviews that I can run in reality capture, and then all the different additional information because the drone is nice from the overview, but then I need all the more detailed information of all the walls on the sides that we will connect to the drone images. But I run it to both softwares, and it seems that the reality capture is it's fast to start with, and it finds more type points, so it creates a better coverage than Pix4D. As you can see, the result below, it only uses a part of the images, and reality capture found way more ties. So this is interesting. So I can ditch Pix4D and continue with reality capture. Also nice, where I was looking for technical clues in these walls. How they were constructed, were the blocks already shaped in the quarry into real blocks, or were the rough stones carried first to the building site and then worked into nice blocks? And here we find a piece that was probably here. The marks are the cutting marks are better preserved. And there seems to be an indication, if I run it through some software, that the marks are continuing from the upper block to the lower block, especially if you use some nice lighting in MeshLab and some shaders. You can single out the blocks, and we might have here some indication that indeed the blocks were here finished on site. run it through GigaMesh for the color, for isolines, and exported that, but also to make sections of the, so on the lower side you see a section of the upper block and the lower block. I'm not sure if it's visible. It's not, it's visible on the screen, right? To see if you can actually see the depth of the chisel marks. But I need to experiment more with GigaMesh to have better results. And then I just exported the vector, well, the isolines and these things to Illustrator. From, you can just export sections in vector drawing directly from GigaMesh and open it in Illustrator. And there I digitized it for, well, traced the cutting marks. But in the end, this is what I have now. I don't have any interpretations still, but I do see that it does seem to indicate that the blocks were finished on site. We know that from the lower city area that this was the case, but here we have finally some evidence also with the temples that it was. But the next step is to have, to identify, well, to compare on a larger scale all the depths, for example, of the chisel marks. I can compare that, see if there are any differences, but these correspond to either ways of using the ads or whatever they used, the method, is it? And then maybe I think some individuals can identify those, but mostly I can. You see, it also responds to different materials, how they cut their blocks. I see with other, I don't have those yet processed, but in harder stones, you see much finer chisel marks than in the softer stones. So there are also some differences, and I like to compare that digitally more. So I can see this visually, but I want to run it through some software, see what kind of comparisons or differences I can identify. And maybe also the tools themselves change. They get finer or rougher, or I don't know. I'm not at that stage yet. But also features in blocks that are hardly visible, especially one to the left. There's also I saw some NASA logo sign in the block to the left. Run it through the software. You see also in the right one, horizontal and vertical lines. Like this. And I'm not sure what they mean. The block to the left is a foundation block, so it was covered. So why is there some incision? And the block to the right was a reused block used in the foundations, probably of Temple 0 or 1, reused in the foundations of Temple 2. And maybe these just are marks just to indicate, well, put here the next block on top. This does seem to correspond. Or are they? There are the kind of mason marks in a way. I know they are in the terracotta because Riemer Knoop shared that information with me. There are some within terracotta marks in the terracottas to indicate where on the building they had to position that specific terracotta. And these are to indicate where the blocks should have been laid. Maybe something like that. I have, but and needs additional research, but I haven't seen them yet in the archaic time in Italy, at least. I know they are in Greece and Egypt and Near East, but not here yet. So next thing I need to do is compare all the cut marks with the tools. Oh, geez. Okay. And identify the technical traditions through time. So I'll skip this, how it was made. And the interpretation I use the same methodology I use for my own practice. So I developed in previous research the tradition in transition methodology, which is a bottom-up approach that combines praxeological, like practice theory, especially the chaîne operatoire approach, and combine that with reflexivity. And the chaîne operatoire, I don't know how many people are familiar with it, but it is really like an operational sequence, a series of actions associated with technical know-how. And you never do that alone. It occurs doing something, making something occurs in a social context. And really central in this are choices and decisions that you make. For example, to use a 3D scanner. I use that methodology to record my practice because I can share then my practice with others that can reuse that, for example, but also it gives you insights how the data was produced. So I analyzed my practices through time. I needed to readjust, realign my developed methodology because I based that on pottery studies. My PhD was within a pottery project. So I stayed really close to the chaîne opératoires developed by Sander van der Leeuw and the pottery specialists. And it doesn't work when I use this for my own field recording practice, for example. So there are different stages, called events, within a chaîne opératoire, within the operational sequence. And I identified 5 stages in my own practice: the conceptualization stage, data collection, processing, creation, and delivery. And within these events, methods are included, the techniques, tools, actions, all the gestures, but also level of skills, and then the whole mental realm also that is occurring in the mind. Well, that's difficult to record, but I made an effort. And all these parts, they draw up a practice, basically, which you can map in a diagram, which I did. And I hope that many people will do that because there is a proliferation. It's really good that people are really archaeologists are increasingly aware of recording your practice. But we all do that in different ways, and that is really difficult then to compare. So if everybody would use the same or similar way of mapping your practice, we can compare it better and eventually identify if our practices have changed, for example. Anyways, this is a diagram, and in order to quantify it better, you can also put it in tables. So this practice is my practice, and that I translated into this diagram through my methodology. You see that I was really busy with the material and looking with material, touching the material, and then I have only even my colleagues who are using the dynamite microscope. Everybody is using for some way a screen now, which become in between. So my artifact visualization diagrams that I developed in past research, I needed to adjust. The stages are now called conceptualization. I left the preparation thing and selection because that's related to pottery. I call it now together conceptualization because this whole first stage occurs in the mind, and especially together with the archaeologist that wants something from you, like the drawing of an artifact or features in the field. And before you start, you already have this technological knowledge, this know-how that informs you how you will, in the next events, will visualize the artifact. As you can see here, it basically is the same, the conceptualization phase. You need knowledge and technical know-how in order to start your drawing. But then something happens, the event of creation, which immediately started when I was still an analog visualizer. becomes data collection. In the past, creation was also the data collection already. It becomes data you're drawing. But now the data collection starts, and then you have not a visual result yet. It's your raw data. You have a bunch of scans or a bunch of photos, and that needs to be processed. This event has significantly changed, over the years. Well, in the past, I would then just digitize my drawing, vectorize it using the technique of vectorization. But now an intermediate event appears in my practice nowadays. I need to process first the data I collected. And then I start the creation of an actual 3D model that will become a 3D artifact, as you see here. Because we now can connect it to all kinds of data, which imbues the 3D model with information. Actually makes it's a body of information, of data, of what we know at this point about that model, about the artifact. And then in the past, I would just deliver it, but now we want to share our data, which is nice. So that all occurs within a social context, I would say. Here you see me all alone making things. And here we are on the site in the field recording. Here you see everybody working together but alone. So I really agree with Ignacio and Klein that no data set or visualization is the result of one person alone. But something changed in the social configuration in both artifact visualization and in the post-processing lab, for example. Because here we see my students all working at the screen with their headphones. So it is really that there's an added complexity. I'm not the first many people wrote this already, but I can confirm there's an added complexity to our practice now. It's not just making the drawing. It's now really, really a long time. I make a drawing in like a couple of minutes, and now I'm busy for like an hour. But then I have way more data that I can analyze. And visualizing your practice like this enables immediately to compare it, right? To visually compare it. I could also now quantify it if I were to make a database, but yeah. I noticed that I need more technical knowledge and different skills now to visualize an artifact. And in the field, the event of creation, which is noticeable, moved to the lab. So we collect data in the field, but then the actual model results in the lab. We need way more tools and actions for in the end, similar visual outputs. I think they didn't much change, especially in the field. We still produce maps, which stand in a really long tradition. And even Gigamesh automatically generates now my profile drawings, but in a way that is still with the T section. I mean, why do we produce this if we have a 3D model?
It's 1 minute.
Yeah.
You can't have any questions.
Yeah, so is it really then transitions changed? I don't think it's changed completely. It's different now with complementary skills. I'm still drawing here, as you see here, at the site, making drawings, but also do the 3D scanning. They're coexisting at this moment, at this point. What's next? Because this is work in progress, it's under construction. Well, I need to include everything in the 3D GIS and bring all the data together, revise all my reconstructions, and then reconstruct the operational chains and share with the public. And why York? Because it's inspiring intellectual environment. Why am I here? There's no pre-Roman archaeology, but there's all these digital facilities and expertise, but also expertise on earth building, materials analysis, and experimental archaeology. And especially your awareness of the tools and what we are doing is what inspired me to come here. Thank you. Any no questions?
Yes, I'm sorry, we don't have any questions, but if you wish to get in touch with Loes about her research, please do. And thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Loes.
Thank you.